Hey ladies, welcome back to my channel. As you can tell by the caption of the video today, we're going to be doing some short almond cat eye nails. I don't know why I just blinked. So yeah, make sure to comment, like, and subscribe. I'm about to go ahead and jump into the tutorial. So I started by pushing her cuticles back, and now I'm going around the entire nail as well as the cuticle area with my 180 sanding band. And this step is super important, y'all. It's simple but important. This is what will get rid of all of those natural oils that our nails produce. And that's important, like I said, because that is what will help your retention. Leaving them oils on the nail will cause the acrylic to lift and not adhere properly as it should. So you just want to briefly and carefully go over your client's nail very lightly just to get rid of all those oils. You don't want to apply any pressure, and you just want to make sure that you're keeping that file moving. Leaving the file in one spot for too long or applying pressure, having the drill up at too high of a speed will cause friction, which is what will give your clients a burning sensation, and it is not fun at all. So definitely, like I said, just kind of work a little light-handedly with that and keep the file moving always. And so like I said, we are doing almond, and she wants them as short as she can do almond without them looking janky. So I'll just go ahead by using my pre-shaped coffin tips. I feel like that's easier and it makes more sense since they're already slanted anyways. So after applying them, I do just cut them to the length, and then I just cut off the corners just like you would as doing stiletto. The only difference is I don't cut them as narrow, if that makes sense, just because we still do want that wider base. So it's just going to be the point that we are focusing on. And every client is different. Every client has their own image and wants as far as almond. So definitely always check with your client. This client in particular, she doesn't like hers very rounded at all, like very wide. She does like them like stiletto, but no point, obviously, and just a little bit more wider at the end. So what I do literally after cutting them, I just start by filing inwards just to kind of go ahead and get that narrow shape. And then once you get to the corner, well, not the corner, once you get to the tip, I'm sorry, the tip of the nail, you just kind of file and go ahead and create that rounded edge. Now you do want to make sure that you're paying attention, because with this shape as well as stiletto, it is very easy to file off more than what you need. So what I say and what I recommend and what I do, I kind of just file each side little by little, and I'm making sure to look at it in between each filing, each jump from side to side, just to make sure that I'm getting it exactly where I want it without taking too much off. As a beginner, sometimes you just get the filing because you're trying to get a nice, crispy, clean shape, and not realizing that you can file off too much sometimes. So when I first started doing stiletto and doing almond, definitely stiletto though, because when I first started, that was one of the most popular shapes. I used to file off so much of the sides trying to get like that very pointed look, that when I would get to the end, because I didn't ever stop and take my time to like look at it, I just thought, okay, yeah, like I'm bringing in the corners, it looks pointy, move on. But once I started to like actually pay attention and look, and I would get to the acrylic part, y'all, the nails were so less, like, I don't want to say ugly, but they were ugly. Like, it literally looked like triangles on some of these nails. And yes, stiletto does kind of give that vibe, but it was just terrible, y'all. I wish I could find a picture. It was not good. So my whole point in saying that is, when you're doing anything that requires you to like file a lot, just definitely take your time and bounce back and forth from side to side. That way you can work your way into the perfect shape that you're going for, rather than file off too much, because you can always file off more if need be. But once you file off too much, your best bet, is either to go with the shape that you nor your client were anticipating, or you're going to have to completely replace the nail tip, which isn't that big of a deal, but it can take up time and it's just unnecessary extra work. So yeah. And like I said, so with my client here, she doesn't want the super pointed at the ends or at the tip, and she doesn't want it to be too narrow either. So these are actually my aunt's nails, so I know exactly how she likes them, which is why I'm just kind of flowing through it. And so it's actually pretty simple to do almond, but you do, like I said, want to make sure that you're paying attention to not only how much you're filing off, but as well as making sure that they are straight. Because y'all, when I first started, okay, once I mastered the not filing too much off. Then my problem was I would get to the end and be like, why are these nails pointing different directions? At the time of filing, I'm not gonna lie, y'all, they, even here in this instance, they look like they're straight, and although they may be straight per nail, they have to be straight together. You get what I'm saying? So almond is very tedious. It's easy to do. I don't want to say easy, it's not as hard as it looks, but it definitely takes some time, and it is very tedious because, like I said, filing each individual nail, it might look straight when you're looking at just that nail, but when you put them side by side, sometimes the math don't be mathing. Like if you do square, I'm not gonna lie, it's usually straightforward. You cut it down a square and boom, it's already there. Especially if you're using pre-shaped nail tips, it's very hard for a square nail to be crooked unless the entire tip is crooked, like when you originally applied it. But doing something like this, you can apply the tip straight and file each, like I said, each nail straight, but they have to be straight, aligned with each other when it comes to like the tip of the almond. So just make sure that you're paying attention to that, because it will make a big difference. As you can see, I'm flipping my client's hand and looking at it from different angles and just making sure that they are not slanted. It is very easy to like file the nail to where once you look at them as a whole together, they're like shifted, like they're kind of like all diagonal pointing looking type of vibe. So just make sure that you're paying attention to that and making sure that before you move on to the acrylic, as well as before you let your client leave, you just double check and make sure that everything is nice and straight. You are filing them now into basically the shape that you want. You are going to have to file them again, obviously, after the acrylic application, but it's really good to just go ahead and get them as close to perfect. I mean, nothing's perfect, but y'all get what I'm saying. As close to perfect now rather than wait till later. That way, when you do apply the acrylic and then you go to file them in the end, you don't have much to do besides cleaning up any rigid, edges, any loose acrylic, etc. So, yeah. So now that we have them nice and filed, we're going to go ahead and blend the natural nail in with the nail tip. I guess I kind of said that backwards. We're going to blend the nail tip in with the natural nail. This is important because this is what will help with that retention and really help prevent lifting. You want to make sure that you're keeping that file moving, but blending it in is just all we're doing here. So nothing more, nothing less. And now we're going to go ahead and go in with the Mia Secret Dehydrator. And this is just another layer of kind of taking that extra step to make sure that all of those natural oils are gone. We want the nail completely dehydrated. Every step that we do in the prep phase is very, very important because prep is key, and this is what will really determine your retention and the quality of like your nails lasting overall. So just definitely take your time with the prep and make sure that you're not skipping any steps. And so now we're going in with the Mia Secret Primer, and this is just another very important step. This is what will allow the acrylic to adhere to the nails properly, and I do 2 coats of this. It's totally optional, only 1 is required, but I do 2. I just feel like I've done it for the past 2 years, and I've been doing nails for about 5. So in the past 2 years, I can tell y'all I literally can count on one hand how many, well, I'm being dramatic, probably not one, but like y'all, it's so rare. I ain't gonna lie, maybe I should put some respect on it. I can probably count on one hand how many clients' nails last less than a month. Like seriously. So it's a blessing and a curse because, their nails are lasting, they're getting their money's worth, but baby, I need y'all to come back. So that's the goal, y'all. That is why you need to make sure that we are prepping the nails properly, we are doing the application properly, we're doing just everything from start to finish as best as we can to our abilities. That way our clients are happy and we're bringing in more clients. Word of mouth is the best way of promotion. I always say that. So you have to make sure that you're putting your all into every set, doing everything you can to ensure that these nails are exactly up to par and how they should be. That way, your client can leave and be bragging on my nail tech and my nails are the bomb, go book her. And then eventually you'll have so many clients that your clients coming back, once a month won't really affect you. So definitely keep that in mind. So now that we have all of the prep done, we're going to go ahead and move into the acrylic application. And y'all, this is the same as any other application. If you are new, I'm sure this is not your very first nail video, but if so, the acrylic application is one of the most simplest parts, but there are a few things that you definitely want to remember when doing this. Number one, you do not need to make the entire nail super thick. A lot of people think in the beginning stages of like doing nails that as long as you make the nail super thick, that you won't have any breaking, you won't have any lifting or popping off, and that is 100% not true. Popping off and lifting all comes from mostly prep, but your application does tie into that as well. And so you just want to make sure that when you are doing the acrylic application, you are focusing on the apex, and the apex is where the natural nail and the nail tip meet. Because when you think about it, without that nail tip, you don't have a nail extension. So that is the most important part that you want to protect, because if that comes off, you're left with your natural nail and up, nothing longer. So 9 times out of 10, if a nail is going to break, that is where it's going to break. And if it does, yes, clients do get rough sometimes, but usually that can come from a apex that is not built up how it should be. So the apex, like I said, is the most important part. And no, that doesn't mean go and make the apex super thick. You just want to make sure that you're focusing on the apex, and you can tell if it's nice and built up because it will kind of have like a slanted look. If you look at your client's nail from a side view, it will, from cuticle to the free edge, which is the tip of the nail, you will see a nice little slant. It doesn't want to be, you don't want it to be too thick, and you don't want it to be nice and flat. Nice and flat is good when we're getting to the like filing and buffing, even though it shouldn't be flat. When I say flat, I mean no bumps and gashes and humps, but you don't want it to be literally completely straight and flat. So just keep that in mind. Another thing is you can also help prevent lifting during your acrylic application. So as long as you did everything with your prep and then you follow these few steps, you should be okay. When you're applying your cuticle bead, you do not want the cuticles to have any acrylic on them at all. So when you're applying that cuticle bead, place it right underneath the cuticle. And I say that because when you go to feather down that acrylic, it will slightly push the acrylic up right into where it needs to be. You want it to be nice and flush with your client's cuticle. So placing it right underneath and feathering it down will allow it to kind of slide into place. As you feather it down, like I said, it will kind of push up a little bit. You can also use the tip of your brush to kind of manipulate it and push it into place. The reason you do not want to place it right at the cuticle is because, again, since it does slide up just a little bit when you start to feather it down, it will and can flood the cuticle. Flooding is when the acrylic is on the cuticle, on the skin, anywhere past the cuticle. The acrylic should never be on or past the cuticle. To fix that, as you can see, I'm doing this on every finger. To fix that, it's as simple as taking your brush and wiping around the entire cuticle area and the sides of the nail. Now, this is totally optional, but I do it regardless of whether there's acrylic on my client's skin or cuticle area or not. I do this 9 times out of 10. There is nothing there for me, but then again, I am very experienced, but I am just in a natural habit of doing it, and nobody is perfect no matter how long you've been doing something. So I do it just as a precautionary measure. You never know. And as many clients as I have in a day, sometimes my eyes do deceive me, and you just never know. So I just do it just to be safe. It doesn't take anything more than 2.5 seconds, and it just is another thing that helps ensure that quality of the nails is where it should be. Any single thing that you can do, y'all, to improve the quality, to add to it, to make sure that your nails are A1, definitely do it. Especially if it's something that is just super quick and it's one of those, well, why not? You know, I'm not saying do things that will add on a lot of time to your set or add on a lot of extra work, but definitely just any little step that you can do that will help add on to the quality of the nails, definitely do that. And so since these are shorter, I'm only having to use about 2 beads. Now I do want to say it does depend on the length of your nail and the shape, but usually I like to say, as a beginner, I think a big misconception is people try to think that there is just a set number of beads that you have to use, and that is totally not true. Whatever you are comfortable with and whatever works for you is what you should do. Now I will say the biggest tip I can give is to work with less acrylic. I don't mean smaller beads per se. What I mean by that is, I guess I should elaborate. Don't just go gung-ho using the acrylic, slapping acrylic on left and right. Work your way up constantly. After each bead, look at it, see where you need to add, and see, check the progress of the nail, because it's easier to add acrylic on rather than get to the end and now you have these super fat nails and acrylic, too much acrylic in the wrong places, and now you're having to spend so much time trying to file it and get that foundation right, when you could have just saved so much time by just kind of taking the extra mile of working smarter, not harder, I guess, taking that extra step to just kind of work a little slower, but add as you go, add as you need it, and do not feel like, oh, I'm already on the 5th bead, I can't add anymore. No, look at your client's nails, like I said, from different angles, especially from the side view. When you're applying acrylic, looking at the nails from the side view is going to be the number one spot, I guess, to point out error, or where you, not even necessarily error, but if you need to add more acrylic or whatever. So of course you don't want the entire nail to be thin or fat, but you do just want to make sure, like I said, you have that apex. You want to make sure that there is no acrylic flooding the cuticle, no acrylic on the skin. And with Almond, since these are shorter and since her tip is more wide, it is definitely easier. Sometimes when you do stiletto or when you do like longer Almond, it is easy for the nail to be kind of flimsy, or it's easy, I guess I should say, to mistake the nail to be built up. It might look perfect, it might look like we're good to go, but always double check when you're doing I don't want to just say anything longer than short, but short, especially in this case, usually after, if you're applying it correctly and putting it in the right spots, whatever, after 2 beads, the tip is normally good. But always double check. But especially when you're doing medium, long, extra long, whether it's Almond, stiletto, whatever, since that tip is so narrow and so slim, it is so easy for it to be kind of bendy and lack a good foundation, because there's nothing, there's not really a lot of nail there. So just keep that in mind. Again, like I said, when you're working with short, it's usually after a few beads, like it's easier to tell if you need to add more with, the shorter that they are. But regardless, as far as acrylic application overall, those are the main things to remember. Like I said, just make sure that there is no acrylic on your client's cuticle or skin. Make sure that your apex is nice and built up. And if you can, a tip is whatever, regardless of whatever shape you're working with, when applying the acrylic, it is definitely helpful if you take the time to wipe, like regain that shape. So, for Almond, for example, since that's what we're doing in this set, you can see that I frequently take my brush and kind of follow around the edge of the nail, and that just helps keep that shape as much as possible. That way when we do go to file, I don't have a lot of filing to do. That helps with square, coffin, stiletto. Just following up with that shape, like I said, will definitely help eliminate some filing in the end. So do it if you please, but I do feel like it helps a lot. Okay, so now that we have the application done, we are going to go ahead and go in and start cleaning up that shape. Now, mind you, since we did take most of our time to kind of perfect that shape in the beginning, this is going to be a little bit more brief. We do already have that shape that we were going for, so now this is just more so cleaning it up. As you can tell, I am taking my file and kind of making sure to file the undersides, and that is super important because if you're somebody like me, how I was mentioning during the acrylic application, to follow the shape of the nail, kind of pressing up against it to keep that shape, that can cause the acrylic to come sometimes like seep underneath or get like excess acrylic on the undersides of the nail. So it's super simple. You just want to make sure that you're taking the file and filing on the undersides, keeping everything nice and straight, nice and clean under there. And then we're just going back in and filing, filing the same, I don't want to say pattern, but we're just following that previous nail shape and cleaning it up, getting it nice and crisp. And then I do like to take my file and file over the top of the nail, excluding the cuticle area. And I say that because we have to use the sanding band, or some people like to use like the ceramic drill bits, but either way we do have to go over the cuticle with the hand drill. So not the hand drill, with the e-file with the electric drill. Sorry y'all, it's late. So we do have to use that on the cuticle area regardless. So I don't like to use this file for that. And on top of that, the cuticles are a very sensitive area, as is all skin, and this file is very sharp. Again, I forgot to mention this is an 80 grit, so make sure that you're pulling your client's skin back when you're filing. I forgot to mention that. That's super important. But back to what I was saying, the cuticle area is very delicate and this file is sharp, so when I do run it across the nail, sometimes I'm doing that pretty fast and it's super easy to nick your client. So I just avoid that area at all costs, and I just like to file the rest of the nail. Now I do that, I still do kind of touch on it when I use the e-file, but I like to do that with the hand file just because I feel like since I've started to do it, it just buffs it out and smooths it out a little bit more for me, rather than just using the e-file. It's totally optional. You can skip that step if you want. I just like to do it. I feel like once I get into, applying the top coat or doing nail art, whatever, once I'm to that stage, I feel like it just applies so much better and it looks a lot cleaner. So that's optional, kind of preference, but it's up to you. So yeah, again, you're just going to make sure that you're getting those undersides, making sure that it's nice and clean on the undersides of the nail, and making sure that you're just filing that excess acrylic off, and make sure that you're regaining that shape. Again, like we did in the beginning, make sure that your nails are all straight and even with one another. When cleaning up the shape, it can cause sometimes you can kind of get it a little bit crooked or slanted, whatever, how it was in the beginning. So just make sure that you are checking, ensuring that all the nails are in the right direction and even. Okay, so now that we have the filing done, we're going to go ahead and go in with that same 180 sanding band. Now, I do want to mention you do not have to use a sanding band. I know some people use the ceramic drill bits. It's really preference. Sometimes I use it, but lately I've just been wanting to use the sanding bands. Essentially, it's the same steps regardless of what you use. So this is where we're going to be sealing the cuticles and kind of just, buffing out the nail, making sure that everything is nice and even. So sealing the cuticles is super important because this is what will help prevent lifting. The goal here is to make sure that the nail and the acrylic is super flush with your client's cuticle area. You don't, of course, want to file too much off. You really don't want to file much off at all. And a big step to, kind of prevent that is making sure that during the application, if you do everything, work neater and cleaner during that time, you won't have much to do here. The main goal, like I said, is just sealing the cuticles and filing out the entire nail. So again, it's kind of super simple. Make sure that you're paying attention to not get too close to your client's cuticle area. You want to go from side to side, ensuring that you have filed and sealed the entire cuticle. And then of course I already filed with my hand file, but I still do like to run over it with the sanding band just to make sure that, another one of those little steps to ensure that it is nice and flat and even, no lumps, no bumps, none of that. So now we're going to move on to the final step before we get into any polishing or nail art. This is just buffing the nail. So you want to take this buffer, and I got this off Amazon. You can get like 130 of them, I think, for $8.99. Super great deal, and the size of them is super convenient. So we're literally just buffing the entire nail, top to bottom, left to right. You want to get the entire cuticle area, and this just helps ensure that we're getting rid of any buffs or scratches, marks, anything that may have happen to the nail when using that e-file. This just ensures that it'll be super nice and smooth. So after my client comes back from washing her hands, I do like to take a lint-free wipe and just go over all the nails with some acetone, just wiping off any residue or anything that could be on there from them paper towels, any lint, etc. So I'm going in with the Makartt Jelly Pink. Now I bought this in like a set, got it from Amazon, super cheap, and I definitely recommend these. They're so, like, the color is so nice and pigmented, and it has really great coverage, so I definitely recommend it. Now again, like I said, we're doing cat eye. Everybody has their own way of doing it, but when I do mine, at least in this instance for the look that we're going for, I like to apply a thin layer, emphasis on the thin. I like to apply a thin layer, one coat of whatever color we are doing, and I apply that first. I'm making sure to, as you can see, taking it all the way to the top, getting the sides. And the reason why I say thin is because we're going to do the cat eye polish and then top it again with the color and with top coat. So as you can see, there's going to be layers upon layers, and you don't want the nails to be thick or kind of lose their shape. And sometimes when you have too much polish, it can cause, the shape to get really wonky or fat or lumpy. So that's why I said one thin layer. And of course, you want to do all the nails. And I do like to wipe the edges to get any excess polish off. Make sure that you're not literally wiping the edge of the nail. I guess I should be more specific and say like the undersides, because sometimes, since this is gel and since it's thicker, it does kind of start to seep off to the side. So just wipe off any excess, and then you want to cure for 60 seconds. Okay, so now that we have that cured, I cannot remember the exact brand. If you can read it, cool, and if not, just comment down below and I'll let you know what brand I use. So I got this off Amazon though, but like I said, just comment if you want to know the brand. But this is the cat eye gel, and I just got silver because for this specific look where we're doing pink, and I'm using the jelly for the color. That is what's going to bring into the color. So I didn't need a colored cat eye. I mean, I guess it's up to you if you wanted to use just jump straight to the color, you can, but we were going for a certain look, and you'll see that at the end. So again, I'm just applying a thin layer of this cat eye gel, and I'm making sure to have enough. You don't want it to be thin to the point where as you're looking at the nails now, there's some spots that barely have any glitter on them. You do want to make sure that you have enough, but just not applying it too thick. And the reason that is because when you go to use your magnet and kind of play around with the cat eye to give it that effect, if there's not enough on there, it's hard to pick up any sort of magnetization, and that is what kind of helps get that cat eye look overall. So you just want to make sure that you're applying enough but not too much. And then of course I also like to go ahead and wipe the edges again. Now, a very important thing to remember, you do not cure this yet. We are going to cure it, but you have to do all your magnetization before curing. When I was a beginner, my first time doing this design, that is a big mistake that I made. I put the cat eye polish on, I cured it, and then I took the magnet and was trying to work with it, and I'm like, why is this? It wasn't moving, it wasn't doing nothing, obviously, because that, you know, effect that they add into the polish was dry, so it was no longer able to be moved or manipulated. So just keep that in mind. If you do happen to make that mistake, an easy way to fix it, you know, if you've already cured it, is just to go back over it with another thin layer, and just do it that way. It's an easy fix. You probably won't even really be able to tell that you have 2 layers on there. It's not like a must that you only, you know, use one. So now that I have it applied, I'm just taking my magnet, and you can find these on Amazon. Most of the time, if you buy cat eye polish, it'll be included with it, but it's kind of hard to pick up on camera, so you may have to really pay attention. But I'm just kind of taking that magnet and playing around with the polish, I guess I should say. I don't even know what to really call it on, you know, what I'm actually moving, but I'm just playing around with the polish and getting it to where I like the shimmer or the cat eye that it has. It's really no right or wrong here, and no nail has to be exactly the same unless, of course, you or your client is very specific on, you know, wanting all the cat eye to be mainly in the center or mainly on the left, top, bottom, right, whatever. If they don't have a preference, I just like to play with it until I see a nice little effect, because I think it looks really nice in the end when they all have their own different look. I feel like it just adds to it a lot. So make sure that you are double checking. You do have to kind of do this a little fast, because as it sits, it does kind of start to blob towards the edge of the nail. So just pay attention that you wipe off any excess before curing, and that you like the effect and where everything is placed before curing. If so, go ahead and cure for 60 seconds. And here I'm just applying another thin layer of that pink, and this is just what will help give it like that marble glass ball type of look, which is why I said, you know, in the beginning, we didn't want to apply the polish too thick. After doing that, I do like to, again, make sure that it's free, like my client's cuticle area and skin is free of any polish. I like to just take my little cleanup brush and dip it in acetone if that happens, and then I apply a top coat, and yeah, here we are. So this is without the flash. It's super cute, and of course when the natural light hits it, it'll look a little different without the flash. And then this is with the flash. So as you can see, it has a really nice effect to it. Those nice spots are where the cat eye is, and obviously in person it looks different, but this is the best I could pick up on camera. So hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. I love you guys, and see you in the next one.